Welcome to the Leith Live series of podcasts. In this episode we have the memories of Rose Minto. Rose was born Rose McIntyre on March 13th, 1920. She lived until she was 14 on Bridge Street, Leith. As a street name, Bridge Street no longer exists as it's now known as Sandport Place. All the buildings that Rose would have known are long away, apart from the Rose Leith pub, which Rose would have known as the Black Swan or Mucky Duck. Her recollections are vividly told. We hear about the industries, the smells, the noise, the horses on the street, the offal butchers, the pawn shops, the hand-to-mouth existence. Yes, this was a close-knit community, but Rose was never a woman for pointless nostalgia. She paints a full picture of life. And certainly that's the case with her own family, her mother, father, aunts and siblings, which may have been a close family, but was complex and problematical. Rose lived on until her 90s. This recording is from 2008, when she was 88. Many things make me smile when I remember Rose. Visually, the most obvious one was her bright red immaculate nail varnish, feisty to the end. Let's listen to Rose and the stories from a world long gone.
And we played shops with bits of china, that was money. No, we were lucky. We lived up end and there was a big, what would you call it, backgreen. It had been a big house of some sort. And there was 6 flats, right. We'd call them. Oh, the one day. My mother had one great big room and a kitchen, and that's where we all lived, ate, slept, whatever. Not very salubrious. But we played in the back green. So we were safe. But you were safe anyhow. A van was a real sight when I was about 5 or 6. A van was something. Horses. And I don't know, it must be in the blood because my grandpa and his partner had brought horses across. I always loved horses.
Really?
I was never frightened. They used to say, look at the big teeth. But I never thought a horse would bite me, it never did. It must be in the blood, I don't know. So, our school was St Mary's Leith from 5 till 11. And my granny, the first day at school, was a dead loss because my granny, her family were all up and she was getting money. She got me a green velvet dress made. I was like a sore thumb and I'd rather been, I usually was like the rest of the folk, but she had me with green ribbon and this green velvet dress. And she got me painted. I wish I could find that. It's a head.
Really? You had a portrait?
Yeah.
Good grief.
I don't know, there was something between my granny and I. I wasn't frightened or everybody else was. She had to make people frightened her to survive. She had to. She was that size.
Right.
If she was 4 foot, she was lucky. I was getting nearly as big as her when I was 7. She died then. But Leith, as I say, we had butchers, bakers, grocers, offal shops, fruit and vegetable shops, drapers, sweet shops, pawn shops.
Do you remember where the offal butcher was?
In the Kirkgate. There was one in the Kirkgate and one in Duke Street. Further I could remember, my granny used to get sheep's bags full of green stuff. And our daughters had to clean them. And the bit I liked was the ruddikin, they called it. It was brown and soft.
Ooh.
Oh, I loved it. I think that's how I've lived so long, because of eating the earth, you may say.
Yes.
My granny got tripe, she got tongue, and placed it with big plates in a flat iron. I don't think we were particularly well fed. I'm sure we were. And soup. You got horse and ribs, and you could have them with cabbage or you could have lentil soup. It was all good food, and no mucked about as no adulterated with whatever.
No.
I think we were fortunate. I wouldn't wish to be young now. I'm sorry for the young, believe it or not.
Well, I can see what you mean, but I'm sure the young would probably feel sorry for what would they see as poverty.
They did. We didn't realise we were poor, because everybody was poor. And it wasn't a competition for the best curtains, the best furniture. It was, oh God, we'll need a chair. And if somebody had a spare chair, they gave it you. Oh, there was bitterness. Women fought each other. But also there was cooperation. Maybe not a love, maybe a desperation, I don't know. Because when you're a child, you think everybody loves you. They don't, not really. And pawn shops, which weren't thought of as shops, they were secretive. Luckily we had the pawn shop on our stair in my granny's house. We were just at the back green. And if they were going to do something, which I suppose they did, I never noticed. And we got our clothes for Harry Lovell and Ritchie. This is the industries. Biscuit factory, shipyards, docks, distilleries, breweries, rope factory, jam factory, and even Cowan Stable in Easter Road had hundreds of horses. Well, maybe no hundreds, but lots and lots.
Where was the jam factory?
The jam factory was in the front of the links. It was a cooperative. It was Leith, well, no Leith Provident, but it was a cooperative jam factory. And it was pound jars and £2 jars, depending on how much money you had.
There's been a lot of smells.
Aye, and there was also the smell of smoke, like sooty.
Yeah, of course.
The atmosphere must have been horrible, but we never noticed. And maybe that's why my mother used to send us, well, she used to send us to Portobello, and you had to walk. Now, it was miles from Bridge Street. But my big brother was responsible, and I was with him, and my wee brother was with him. My wee sister, I don't think, was born. And our cousins, there was about 14 of us, went to the sewerage pipe at Seafield. And there was a distinct smell there. There was. And I was always put in charge. I must have been like my granny. I was always put in charge of the wee ones. I was 13 when my mother was dying. But she took about a year and a bit. And I was in the house. And I don't school. And when I think of my mother, must have been in pain. It was a wound that was cancer had cut. Lumps, so they just cut them away till that was their technique then. Cut the bits away and hope it doesn't grow, but cancer. And I wasn't a good housekeeper. I wouldn't recommend me to anybody. My poor mother, when she had sisters who were a bit better off that came and sat and chatted. And I had to make rotten tea. And they left one Carnus wine. My mother got a wee drop of it, but I was having little sips. But I never ever felt as if I was inebriated. It must have been that strong. I took care not to take too much, or my dad might have noticed. Well, I liked being with people, and I liked fun. But I was never like, the aim and object was to meet a nice chap and marry him. Mine never was that. I was always hoping somebody would come along and take me and educate me. Always.
Really?
I had that illusion that maybe it would happen, but it never did. Yeah, I got 98 in qualifying, and I should have been at Holy Cross. She had a great big emporium in Constitution Street. Great big enormous shop with everything in it. Shoddy goods. And the women had to pay her. They got a wee green book, I think I remember, and they put what they paid per week, and they were shoddy goods. But she gave poor children Holy Cross, the bright ones. But mother, the nuns visited. My mother wouldn't. So I went to St Anthony's, where it was easy to be the best there, because nobody... there was no competition. But there again, there was snobbery in St Anthony's. We had an English teacher, Jean Mackenzie, and we were, oh God, we were the bottom of the barrel for poverty. And she got astonished when I was bright, yeah, and she was filled with wonder at this ragamuffin. And there was a girl, Ruby Stone, whose father had a good job and she was always nice. And she thought Ruby, but Ruby was average, I would say. There was a lot of cruelty in ways. And Ruby and her friends would say, how can that ragamuffin... I never had any illusions of my grandeur, that was for sure. I never had any. But my mother was no fit. And my mother's younger sister, who was a love, who did us a power of good, she went to the wash house for my mum. She came and helped me and gave me a ding-along beer if I wasn't doing it right. She was a wonderful... There were a lot of wonderful women, now I reflect on it. There were. The women were the backbone. Then, of course, came the Depression. My dad had TB, but my dad was a child. He'd been a prisoner for 4 years with the Germans. He was in Holland and he went from a 12-stone man to a 6-stone man, and he came back lousy. That was another land fit for heroes. What a rubbish statement that is. He came back lousy, and I remember my granny burning all his clothes. And I remember him wearing and he was a tall man, and my uncle's money that time. My uncle's trousers and shirts. So if you had eyes to see, it was grim, and yet we never felt it to be grim. When I worked in the ropery, because I was an orphan, the older girls were good to me. They were good to me. And they bought me a voile dress. Can't remember the colour even. And it was summer, so they were going to walk along Princess Street. Princess Street was beautiful, I remember that. It was beautiful. One side the gardens, the other side lovely shop. Oh, now, what a mess. It was beautiful in between the wars. There was Forsyths, Darlings, all the posh shops that wouldn't let us in, of course.
Was that the case? They really wouldn't...
Oh no, you weren't allowed common factory girls, no.
So would they have had doormen?
Yes, I think. Well, there were either doormen. I remember them putting us out. We opened the door and it was a woman. They knew we hadn't a hope of what could we buy. And all the stuff was really expensive. You needed a penny for the tram up to Princess Street. We didn't have extra, we had sixpence, and that paid for the Eldorado. And that, the Magurtis owned that as well. They owned that, and they owned the wrestling. They owned the wrestling and they owned the dance hall. And she had that. They must have been really well for the time. But I can't say I remember. I must have seen her, but I can't say I remember her or her son either. Because the duckers had hooks that they needed to cut the big sacks, and they used to put them on a Friday night for 8 pence, and she wanted 1 6 or a shilling, one of the two, to redeem them. And yet they battered their wives if they found out their suits had been in the pond all week. The suits usually went in on Monday and came out on Friday. They went to football on Saturday. So they were practical people. I admire the women. And you had a good man or you had a bad man. There was nothing in between. My dad was one. My dad was a child for the war, and he reacted like a child. My brother was 8 years older than me, but he was a man. My mother was lucky, and my brother always gave my mother a wee box of Bo Peep chocolates off his wages every week. There was lovely things among not so lovely.
Yeah, what about your brother? What was he was 8 years older than you, so he was born in 1912. What happened to him in those between the wars?
In years. Well, he worked in Hayes, the grocer shop on the corner of Junction Road and Henderson Street. He worked hard. He pulled this lady who had a fish cart, Kate Goldie. Now there was fish at New Haven. Kate used to go and load up with her fish. He pulled that all the way to the broad pavement in Leith. And I don't know what she gave him.
Right.
But he always sent money from I was little, maybe when he was 13. He went with pies for the store and bread for the store and milk for the store. He worked hard. And my dad worked hard. My dad was a lot. As I say, my dad drove steamers. He was a carter. He graduated to the steamers. Well, my dad could work. He worked like a horse. But he was glad that he resented my brother, but he was glad he could help my mother to manage the money.
Why do you say, what do you mean by he resented your brother?
I think he felt inferior to my brother because my brother was another one that should have had a chance. He could work with figures and he could make money go. I mean, my mother depended on my brother.
So what about how long was he at Hayes doing that?
Well, thereby hangs another tale. My mother died and I was left as poor souls have got my sympathy. Even to this day they've got my sympathy. But I tried hard for the kids. My dad's sister, she's too involved. My dad's sister didn't have kids, but Granton became the fashionable place. You know, you had a bath. It was great. My auntie wanted one of those houses. She was a remarkable woman. Not a nice lady, but remarkable. She wanted a house in Granton, and generally what she wanted she got. So she knew my dad wasn't happy with me, and he wasn't. So she worked on him so that he'd put me out and they'd go to Granton. They'd put in for, you got what your family, size of your family, you got 3 bedrooms, 1 bedroom. And she engineered it so that my dad had cause to throw me out. And the cause was, I went back to work because I was asking him for money for the kids' clothes. I got £0.50 a day to keep 5 of us, and that's how he would give me my brother, filled in the spaces. So this night it must have been arranged that I was to be put out. So my auntie turned up, which she never did to help, and I was dishing out fish suppers among the kids, and my dad got one, Willie got one, the kids and I got one between us. She says, "Oh, my brother eating a fish supper." I says, "You're bloody lucky he's eating anything." I said, "I'm working." And she stood up, she was a big woman and I was a starved kid. She got up with these big leather gloves. I said, "If you land that glove on me," I said, "you're dead." And I meant it. I did mean it. So she put them down and she said to her brother, I was called Tossie, "Tossie, do you hear what she's saying to me?" And my dad said, "Get out." But he was half drunk. She got him half drunk. I said, "Okay." Not a clue. And my brother stood up. Again my brother stood up. He said, "Well, I'll go as well." Oh, she says, "You didn't need to go. He had a wage." He says, "Do you think," he said, "I'd let my sister go out there and with no clue where she was going?" No, I said, "I can't do that." So we had 2 paper pots with pussies, and out we went, and traditionally the rain came. And we got out and we were walking along Junction Road, and he had no idea. But I was very intimate with my Auntie Maggie, who already had a house full. So I said, I never thought she'd take us in. I said, "The only one I can think of well is my Auntie Maggie." So we went up there, and she had warned me, because she was a woman, she saw what I didn't see. She had warned me something like this would happen, but I didn't believe that my dad could do that. So we went, and she said, "Oh well, it's no surprise." She says to Willie, "Maybe you'll not be comfortable, son," she says, "but you'll have to go in the room with the men." But then we had Paddy, an Irishman, Barney, a Scots-Irishman. We had my cousin, whose father didn't like him. We had my auntie's brother. Luckily it was a great big enormous room. We had my auntie's brother, or my mother's brother, and Willie. That was there was always five seemed to be a number. Yeah, they all had very not luxurious bed. And I don't think Willie had a bed, but my auntie was ingenious, she got bed. They were all, or they weren't in the base bed, there were straw mattresses, and I don't know where she got her blankets and her covers. And Willie wasn't comfortable, because he had his own room, but he stuck it. But he only stuck it. See, everything's mixed. And he was a reader, and the men would all have their pints and their smoke, and he was most uncomfortable. I was my auntie's, I worked in the mill from 7:30 till 5:30, 7:30 to 12 on a Saturday. I had to wash the stairs, and they were pipe clayed, and if they weren't right, she'd throw water. She was a hard, but she worked, how much she must have worked. She had 3 kids, a man and 5 lodgers. So I had to make the beds before I went to work in the morning. So I'd be up at 6 every morning. When I came in at night, if there was something to be done, or I'd look after the kids while she got out. She had 3 kids.
It's interesting the way that you're talking about it, because obviously it's not really a rosy glow of nostalgia, is it? Because
it's not.
The way you're describing it, the relationships are quite complex, all this.
They're all mixed up.
Yeah.
When they all used to talk about the man they would like, I wanted to go to university. How stupid was that?
Well, not stupid, no.
Aye, it was stupid. It was unattainable. I never wanted men, and I always got wee shrimps coming to ask me to dance. And why do we men like big women? It's true.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leith Lives. I'd like to thank Archie Minto for filling in some background information to this episode. Check out his own podcast on our Leith Lives channel. And remember, all our podcasts that we do are available via our website, www.livingmemory.org.uk. Thanks again.